I'm Roger Carswell, Director of the Southeast Kansas Library System.
And I'm Kim Rutter, Consultant for the Southeast Kansas Library System.
This video training on the topic of effective library board meetings is presented by the Southeast Kansas Library System as one option for library trustee training in our member libraries. Watching this and discussing the questions will meet the criteria for trustee education for the SEK allocation. We don't necessarily have any objection to others making use of it as well, but if you're not from Kansas, please note that some parts may not hold true in other states.
So why do we want to talk about effective library board meetings?
We want trustees to feel good about the value of their work on the library board, that they're doing something worthwhile, and having effective library board meetings is a big piece of that. You especially want to make sure you're not wasting their time.
Trustees are volunteering their time, so it's especially important to make time they spend in meetings productive. Good, solid trustees with experience on other types of boards may not want to serve on a library board that seems to be wasting their time.
Conducting an effective board meeting doesn't come naturally to everyone, maybe not to the majority of people, which is another reason for us to provide training on effective board meetings.
If you can attract board members with previous experience using Robert's Rules of Order or past 4-H members, you may find that they value properly run meetings.
We also want to make sure everything is done as it should be. Frankly, we've seen or heard of some really off-the-rails meetings, and we want to help make sure your meetings don't become another one to go off the rails.
If you regularly have board meetings running 2.5 or 3 hours, or if you have trouble keeping board members on library business rather than chatting about kids and grandkids, you might just need this training.
Then, what are some things which go into making a board meeting effective?
Effective board meetings start with things that happen before the actual meeting. Most or all of these things will need to be accomplished by the library director in communication with the library board. You need to have a regular date and place for library board meetings because they are open to the public.
For board members, a regular date means they can get it on their calendars, helping them to avoid schedule conflicts.
Here's a discussion question. What are some things to consider when choosing a regular time and location for library board meetings? Please pause the recording and discuss or think about this question before continuing.
Here are some of the things we hope came up in your discussion. Meetings should be set for dates and times which are convenient for all members. Just because you've always met on the third Thursday of the month at 5 p.m. doesn't mean there's anything sacred about that. If a new board member has another commitment every Thursday night or doesn't get off work until 5:30, by all means find another date and time for your regular meeting.
And keep in mind, if you struggle to find enough good board member candidates, that discussing the possibility that board times could be changed might be a good recruitment tool.
As far as a location, make sure it's a place which is accessible to the public, which almost always means the library is the most logical place. But since it's important for the library director to be fully engaged in the library board meeting, if you're trying to have the meeting where the director has to keep an eye on the library, you should rethink that.
If the director has to get up to answer the phone or check out library books, either the meeting goes on without her and she misses part of it, or the meeting stops and everyone's time is wasted until she comes back. The board cannot take votes unless there is a quorum. For a city library, a quorum is 5 members, and for a township library, a quorum is 4. The mayor is a voting member of the board in a city library, and the township trustee is a voting member of the township library board. If there are members who consistently can't make it to meetings, the board president and director may need to privately ask that person if they need to resign from the board.
But don't take that step until you've explored the possibility of a meeting date which works out better for the chronic absentee.
The library board needs the input and collaboration of the library director, who is the person running the library day to day. So the director needs to be present and participating in all board meetings, and the director must be paid for time spent attending board meetings.
The only time the director should not be present is during executive sessions when the board is discussing her performance.
An important part of effective board meetings is distribution of materials a few days before the meeting. This would include minutes of the previous meeting, the financial report, the director's report, and the agenda. This packet should go out to all board members, including the mayor or township trustee, as well as to anyone else who requests to be put on the distribution list.
This gives everyone a chance to review materials ahead of time and not waste board meeting time getting up to speed. Any supporting information about items on the agenda should also be included in the advance mailing.
We mentioned the agenda should go out ahead of time. Can you talk a little bit more about the agenda and what's on it?
The most important thing about an agenda is just having one. An agenda is basically an organized list of things which should be discussed or acted on at the board meeting, and then you should stick to the agenda. While things can be added to the agenda, don't just let discussion wander all over the place. Bring each agenda item up in turn and deal with it.
Sticking to the agenda is largely the job of the board chair in running the meeting, but the rest of the board members, as well as the director, should also be aware of the agenda as the organization of the meeting, and not derail the order of business by inserting random topics for consideration.
There are a few routine things which should be on the agenda for every meeting, starting with the minutes. Minutes are the official record of what occurred at the meeting and are kept permanently. Sometimes people misunderstand what minutes are. They're not transcripts, and there's no need to record the points people make in the discussion. Rather, the minutes are a record of what topics were discussed and what action, if any, was taken on them. Most of the time, it's adequate to state something like, the service policy was discussed, or, if action was taken, to state something like, Roger moved and Kim seconded that the service policy be changed to allow up to 3 renewals on items checked out. The motion passed.
Minutes should also include who was present at the meeting, including non-board members like the director and anyone else from the public who asked to speak. Keeping minutes can be intimidating for some board members, but it is possible to use a general outline of the agenda with lines to be filled in that make most of the typical parts of the minutes quicker and easier to record.
The list of bills to be paid and the financial report should also be on the agenda. Ideally, as we said, these should be provided ahead of the meeting to give board members a chance to review them ahead of the meeting. It's appropriate to ask questions about either one. In fact, board members should always ask for any needed clarification on these.
It's so important that multiple sets of eyes are looking over the bills for a library. When a member of the board votes in favor of accepting the financial report and list of bills, they are saying they understand what the charge was for and that they approve of it. The director usually has a monthly report for the board. At minimum, it will cover what programs were presented during the past month and statistics on numbers of items checked out. These have more meaning for the board if they show comparisons between previous months or a year earlier checkouts for the same month, so the board can see trends.
If the director provides a written narrative report, that fleshes out things more than just the statistics and helps keep board members well informed about the library.
It's not required that the agenda provide time for the public to speak, but it's a nice gesture in case someone does show up.
If you do have a public comment time on the agenda, there should be a reasonable time limit for each person speaking.
The majority of the meeting time should be spent covering any old or unfinished business items and new business of the board. Each topic should be listed separately so that board members can be prepared to discuss that topic at the meeting.
Appropriate items of business include library policy, budgets, major purchases, strategic planning, and oversight of the library director, including the annual evaluation. Don't try to manage the library at board meetings. That's the director's job.